It's important to respect others because it's sad if you think they all have to think the same way you do. But to have the self-confidence to just go forward and then own what happens. I learned from this fire. It's not something I would have desired. It's not something I would have chosen. It's not something I would wish on anyone else. But it has been a deep learning because I've had it and I'm already in that position of saying,
I totally believe that what makes us great is the challenges that we face in our lives, the fires that we face in our lives. How do we show up? How do we react? And today we get the privilege of having Carole Hodges with us today, who is an expert in various modalities of healing as well as a financial specialist. But today she's with me as my friend who has literally been through a fire about a month and a half ago. Carole, welcome, my dear.
I am so glad to be here and on many, many levels. Let me tell you, um, I had thought that I'd been through many things in my life. Uh, be, I'm not going to go through a litany of those, but uh, I thought I'd face some of the worst things in life. And yet the fire took me by surprise. I mean, not only because nobody anticipates a fire ever. Mm-hmm. And this is what people are always curious how it started. We were sitting and watching television just before 9 p.m. and suddenly smelling something that smelled electrical. And so immediately we're up trying to find out what is it? Like nothing's on in the kitchen. I smell it more in my office, but nothing's on. What is it? We found that a puff of smoke was coming from the workshop in the back of the house. No one was in that workshop, but ran around and we found fire in it. We think that perhaps a rat chewed through an electrical wire, that's how it began. So totally unexpected. But the good thing was we got into action right away. You never know how you respond, but I am one who just jumps right up. Before we even found it, I was running out with my cell phone in my hand and a fire extinguisher. Fire extinguishers didn't work, and I was on the cell phone right away to report it. Only being faced by some additional things, and that I was put on hold by 911. I never expected that one, but stayed in action the whole time I was on hold with 911. We got gardeners out of a trailer that was in the back, and that trailer burnt to the ground. So it was amazing getting them out right away, instructing them to get their car out, getting dogs in one house and realize, no, they shouldn't be in my house. So taking them to another house. But all of that running around before I got the opportunity to actually report the fire. But the good thing was we were all safe. People were safe and the dogs were safe. And then you're just looking at it. And honestly, from the outside, there were flames going up in the back, but people think it's only a total loss if a house burns to the ground. That's not the case. The front of the house still had my decorative flag flying, still there. It looks very peaceful from the front of the house. But what happens, smoke invades everything. They called it a total loss because there was nothing in the house that was not touched. And things that so saturated with smoke, they were irretrievable. But a surprising thing to me happened once I'd done all the running around and gotten the people safe and got the fire department was there. And what they do is immediately tell you, step back, get out of the way. In other words, they're taking over at that point. So up till then, you figure, what else can I do? But then we sat back and are sitting on a bench a ways away. And my husband says to me, we've lost everything. The odd thing was, there was a peace inside. I had not expected that at all. I knew that the important things, our lives, are still there. So that was the beginning of what's been going on for the last 2 months. But yeah, excuse me, but emotions come out when they do.
Carol, I really appreciate you taking the time and the energy to do this with me while this is still very real, very raw. Because for me, I was taken back by your calmness through it, truthfully, when I saw you that day. And I thought, how incredible for a person to be going through something generally so devastating, losing everything, and still to be able to somehow be in control of your emotions and how you showed up. Would you share, like, what is the things that go through your head? How do you maintain that? Because there's a lot of people that are dealing with very rough things, just like
Yeah.
you are. And because you've had so much wonderful training and the way you show up is so real, would you share some of that for someone
Yeah.
that might be struggling?
One of the things that I learned that has helped me, which is be in the moment. What's actually real in the moment. So just a moment ago, and um, it put me back in the moment of when it was going on. But what's real in the moment is just that one of the things I've learned is we are not our stuff. There's a great feeling, certainly within our society, that, he who has the most stuff wins. And it's just a fact of life. We all collect. I've not known anybody who doesn't collect, even if it's minimal and you're collecting seashells from the seashore. It's still, we have a tendency to collect and gather together things. And when they're suddenly gone and you're still okay, I began to realize how little we actually need. And it's little things. And I have to say, thank you, Rima. You were the first one. You were the next day with some basics of clothes, of pajamas. Now, everything was in there. I was wearing my gym clothes because I'd gone to the gym the night before. And thank heavens I wasn't in my pajamas when all of this happened. But I was wearing my gym clothes all that night while I ran up and down the street and wore my gym clothes to bed. I'm wearing my gym clothes the next morning because I couldn't get into the house and no idea if I had any clothes. And so it was very touching to have someone who understood I needed a few basics just to get by. But it's amazing as I've realized and gathered things around me, because I'm living in a friend's guest room, and she's let me have her washing machine going day and night for quite a while to take what clothes were salvageable and get the smoke smell out of them. But it's amazing in taking things to storage that my next thought is how to get rid of more stuff.
Mm.
I began to see that sometimes the stuff holds us back. And I'm not anti-stuff. I like stuff just as much as the next person, but I now realize that we pay for it in more ways in our lives that's worth looking at, not because it's wrong, but because we have more choice if we're saying what's really important to me. Because stuff, it takes time and effort to have the money to buy it. And again, I'm schooled in money and how to handle that as well. But without knowing what's really important to you in life, you can waste a whole heck of a lot of it on the newest, shiniest thing. It doesn't bring you happiness. It takes stepping back and saying what really supports me in my mission in life. That's where I want to spend my time and energy. And from that place, you can make better decisions on what's really important to you.
And you said a word that is very key: choice. What are some of the choices you've made in how you react and how you show up because of this latest fire in your life?
One of the things that I step back and look at, that I encourage everybody to, that I I think as time goes on and you experience more of life, you recognize that life is really an adventure. I call it our life adventure. It's also like a game. Now, my own belief is that from a spiritual perspective, we are connected to something higher. We are all something greater living within us. And we come down here as humans and we have a life that had a beginning and our human life has an end. But in between, we're playing our human game. And an interesting thing about it is if we all sat down to play a game, we'd all have the same rules. We'd all have the same objective. What's interesting about the human game, we each decide what it is that makes us win. It's easy to be distracted by society, by rules from outside. That's where we get the idea that, the person with the most money and toys wins. But the truth is, you win when you fulfill why you came here. That you may find in your family, you may find it in your career, you may find it in a passion that you have. It can be any of those places. Once you realize it's only your game to win, you take the time to say, what is my game? But when you know it's your game to win, then you can truly be yourself. So you will never please everybody on this planet. Heaven knows in the society we have today, there's so many varying opinions. You will never please anyone, or excuse me, everyone. You do want to please yourself, but you will never please everyone. But it's not important to do that. It's important to respect others, because it's sad if you think they all have to think the same way you do. But to have the self-confidence to just go forward and then own what happens. I learned from this fire. It's not something I would have desired. It's not something I would have chosen. It's not something I would wish on anyone else. But it has been a deep learning because I've had it and I'm already in that position of saying uh, it was a spiritual event for me.
Mm.
And those around me are finding, huge changes in our lives because of it, which is just an opportunity to look at life differently and make different choices.
I know you've been through multiple, I'm going to call them fires, family challenges in this past year. How is dealing with this different than the definite life altering things that have occurred within your family also?
Yeah, yeah. No, this is kind of the cap of quite a year, and it started just a little over a year ago. Um, Something that really set me back is in a single week, one sister announced she had a brain tumor and was needing to go into an operation on that within a few weeks. And she'd been told she may or may not survive the operation. And my brother announced he'd been fighting colon cancer, that he was going into hospice. And another sister, just days after that, uh, her husband died suddenly of a heart attack. Riding a bike, he collapsed off and he was dead before he landed. So that was a lot to take in. And then my sister has made it through the brain surgery. She had two surgeries and she was in a month and a half in ICU. Uh, but she's still in recovery. Yeah, and her life perspective has changed. My brother passed in May of this year, but we had a chance to talk about our life adventure. I do believe that, he's still with us. His spirit is here, even if he's not physically here. So it in one sense, my family, it's like, okay, this is probably the mildest thing that's happened all year. Is, oh, your house burned. Okay, take that in stride because there are, other things going on as well.
And I brought that up, Carole, honestly, because of your resilience and because you still have a smile on your face and you still get up every day and are on purpose working on moving forward and doing things that matter. So, for a lot of individuals to see that life happens to all of us, none of us can predict the next second what could happen. But the reaction and the way that we show up is really what makes the difference.
Yes.
And that's really why I'm thankful that you're here today and you're sharing a lot of this. I'd love to know, how has it been for you accepting help from others? Because for a lot of people, especially women, that's usually a big challenge for us to accept help.
And thank you for asking. That's one of those things that, yes, as someone who's always helped others and maybe my place in the family. I was the oldest of six. By the time the younger ones were born, I was the babysitter and I was taking care of them. So that's how I've always seen my position. I'm the one who steps up to help because I was born to be the oldest. I was born to be the one to take care of everything. It was so it has been, first of all, it was amazing to me, the people who just stepped up and helped. And whether it was donating because that's something we needed, or whether that was uh, groups who came over and my gosh, they helped me wash what I was keeping. Everything had smoke on it, so everything in the house, all the plates and all, they were in the front of the house. They were fine, except they were covered with soot. So they came over and had a little assembly line. And it was just one person who stopped me because wasn't thinking ahead of organizing anything. And she stopped me and said, okay, looked me in the eyes and said, how can I help? So I said, well, I guess I could use some help washing things and, wrapping this, putting them in boxes so I can store them. So she organized a group of women who were over here doing that. And that's been amazing to me, as well as some of the work that I have been doing to read, to maximize this time of choice and transition, and say, what can I learn from it? That other things have stepped up as well, new opportunities to work with people. And a healer stepped in and offered me a healing that in the past I would have said no. A lot of things I would have just, I'm fine. No, I would have set them aside. And yet I'm learning a new appreciation for doing that, for accepting the help, because they're also allowing me to see things in a different way, expanding my vision. That's the opportunity when unexpected things happen, is to expand your vision. And I believe that helps me to be okay with a lot of change at once. Because right now, I'll be moving to a new area, to a new place, in a new situation. I don't know how it will work. I am more aware of something that's true for all people at all times. We do not know the future. None of us can say for sure what will happen in the next hour, the next day, month, year. We never know. We like to think we do, that we have a plan, and there's going to be a party at Christmas, there's going to be birthday parties, there, all these things are going to happen. Yet the real truth is we never know. We never know what will happen next. And I believe that in actually settling into that, that's okay. I don't know, and that's okay. That, I believe, leads to resilience. Yes, have a plan, but if it gets interrupted, that's okay too.
That's a wonderful way of looking at life and reality. Have you allowed yourself to grieve? Because it is a gigantic loss, and I am commending you for your attitude and the way you show up. But are you also allowing yourself to grieve what's no longer, and as you move to the new?
Grief is an interesting question, and I say that because, as you know from my book, The Menopause Millionaire, yeah, in a single year, I lost my eldest daughter to suicide, had a divorce and a bankruptcy. So lost the house I'd been living in. And, after losing a daughter, and then I had to continue on. I had two younger children. and had to find a new job and didn't really tell people what was going on in my life. I was afraid I would never get a job if anybody had any idea what was happening in my personal life. My first job I took 2 weeks after my daughter's funeral. But what I found about grief is I feel it when it comes upon me, and truly losing a person I realized was about a, a 2 year process. And I didn't realize I was grieving the whole time. But 2 years after she passed, one day I walked outside and noticed that the sky was blue. And I had not noticed that for the last 2 years. So grief is very real, and yes, feel it when you feel it. Where I found a lot of resilience is recognizing and looking around and saying what's true.
Mm.
Because you can get stuck in grief and stuck in the past when you're just circling back on it. Yet if you stop for a moment and look around and go out and look at a tree and say, but that's real. That's here right now. A flower, that's real. That's here right now. Because our attitude is very often what we're choosing to focus on. Again, it's choice. And I'm not saying skip over it, not at all, but feel it when you feel it. Watch out if your mind is circling around and around and around. And usually it's on the I would have, I could have, I should have, if I only. It's the things wanting to change the past. And once you accept that changing the past that's the impossible. You can change from where you are now going forward. It's futile to change the past. Feel what you feel, but be present and move forward. That's the only direction that's real in this life.
I love all the wisdom that you're saying and putting out there to the world for the individuals that are suffering, and for them to see that you've definitely have had lots of reasons that you could choose to go, life is awful, life is this, life is that, but you really are intentional in how you're showing up. And I work a lot with younger generation and about their mental health and how they perceive things, even things that are really dark in life. So I appreciate your input in how you're phrasing things and how you move forward. And if I took the time right now, Carole, and I put you in front of a group that are having a challenging time for whatever reason, what would you say to them based on your incredible knowledge?
I would encourage them to, first of all, get in a quiet place, close their eyes, breathe deeply, and connect with their inner heart and soul, with what they really want out of themselves and out of life. Because approving of yourself, I don't care who it is, what your background is, you're doing the best that you can in that moment. So approving of yourself, because from that core is where you can find the strength. In any situation, there's what you're accepting, and then maybe the next thing is whatever choice you're going to have. There can be horrible situations where your choice is to get out of that situation. There can be situations where it's something you have to do. Uh, But it all comes from choice and your ability to change. And anyone can change. But start with connecting with yourself, because somewhere deep inside you and your own breathing, there's a connection to spirit, whatever. It doesn't need to be a certain religious belief. I believe this is natural for us as human beings, that we have a connection to spirit. So connect there. And then just, it's one foot in front of the other. What is the next choice? What is the next choice? With each one, new opportunities open. And that's a way to begin to get out of whatever difficulty you're in.
Thank you for that, Carole. I know you've had extensive training and you were a dance professional for multiple years. What did you learn through that experience that is helping you even till today? So that people, and the reason I'm going there is because everything in our life is connected. We're all connected. So for people to begin to understand that whatever they're going through right now is only a stepping stone. So what did you gain from that experience?
I learned to dance. I started the year I was turning 30.
Mm.
I did not have the opportunity to dance when I was younger. I was a cheerleader. I did other things because that's what was available. And the year I was turning 30, some friends told me what fun they were having in a dance class. I wanted to be with my friends. I thought this sounded wonderful. It just called to me. What I learned, first of all, I didn't get into the jazz class with my friends. So I said, well, whatever class you've got, just get me into a class. So I started with ballet
At 30.
at 30. What I learned, first of all, moving with music to me was magic. I learned that it took so much of the foundation first. Anybody who's taken ballet know you stand at the bar and you learn plies. You are strengthening your legs like forever and stretching and keep going. You know, stretching, you take the physical, it's what we want to do mentally and spiritually, but you're taking your body and seeing if you go just a little farther each day. And yet you have to honor it, because some days you have to pull back because your body says, no, 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 we're sore. But that's the foundation. And what I learned more is when, after looking back, because I learned from the foundation and then being willing to know what I just go along with what I didn't know, because the teacher later laughed at me. I went to my first ballet class, and you just go up to the bar and then they say, okay, first position, plie, and then give you the arm positions, but they call them out. I didn't know what anything was. I learned, I had just had to, hear her and watch the room and just kind of follow along. I finished the first class and said, do you have a more beginner class for me? And I was in the beginner class. I had never learned that way. I learned with textbooks, show me a diagram and tell me how it's done. There is none of that. You have to just do it. And you learn in the doing, which is much more the way you learn in life. You learn by the doing. As I got stronger, then I became much more aware of the people around me, because you would get out to the center of the floor and it wasn't only you going through the motions, but there's people all around you. So you have to be cognizant of where they are when you're dancing as well, so that you all stay spaced out and you don't bump into each other. And eventually, I actually began to dance, because it really took years before you could listen to the music and had enough control over your body to begin to feel like you were really dancing. Now, by this time, since I didn't start till I was 30, and so teens could be in the adult class when they turn 16. So it was not long before I was twice as old as some of the people in the class. And I was dancing to the point that at some point I was three times as old as other people in the class. But what I recognized by that time is that we all added to each other. They could leap much higher and kick much higher than I could. But I also learned to really dance, to be expressive, because I had learned some of that control. That's where I find that dance is so much like life, because that's how we start out. We all learn by just following along when we have no idea. And how we learn depends upon who we looked at and who we followed. And then it's self-correction. All along, you just say, oh, there's a better way to do it over there. Let me do it that way. And eventually feeling like, okay, now it's my dance. Now I hear the music and I'm going to express myself. That's when I felt like we were truly all together in different phases of learning. But that's the real vision, is when you learn how to do your own dance, because it's the same music as everybody else, but it's your expression.
I love how you're saying that you learn to do your own dance. And it brought me to something you said earlier, that when you lost your daughter and you needed to get up and get a job and get moving, you were very concerned with people not knowing what's going on. And I still find that one of the things that hold people back so much, what others are thinking. How have you learned and grown from that perspective, even to today, dealing with an actual fire?
What I understand is we communicate on so many levels. So there are words, but there's vibration, there's attitudes. And there can be, I mean, with anything going on, allowing other people to help and being real with what's going on in your life is one thing. However, you can lean into your own problems and it's not attractive. It pushes people away. That's a reality too. With any of the things that have gone on is, uh, I'm sure all of us have seen somebody who's, poor me. You think you've got problems? Well, my problems are much worse, because, they're fighting for the bottom of the barrel. And that is not attractive either. So it's one of those things, uh, again, it's to go deep within yourself. That's where we do the learning. That's where the self-approval comes in. And I have great compassion for where it is in their journey. All I can say is it's not just one way or the other. It's like, hide it all or blurt it all out all over everyone. Do look for the support where it's available. And sometimes you really do need to speak to somebody privately about what's going on. Even when my daughter passed, I had a support group of women who didn't know what was going on. They were the ones I could be with when I wasn't working, because I did not blurt it out at work. But I I call that my pass the Kleenex time. They knew exactly what was going on. So if it was, I was with them and started crying, they didn't even need an explanation. They just passed the Kleenex and all was good. Might put an arm around me and pass the Kleenex. We didn't need to talk about it. There was nothing that could be gained. It didn't change the past by talking about it. I encourage anybody to look for the people who can pass the Kleenex and be with them. Doesn't need to be a whole group, but having somebody who can be with you and recognize that and give you the space to work it out within yourself. Between you and spirit is where the answer is. The place of other people is that the right people can point a little different direction, open a new door for you to possibly see things in a different way.
Thank you for saying that and for accepting help, for people to actually seek people that genuinely care and can help, whether it's professional help or a group of friends that care, because that makes a gigantic difference for the difficult times in life. And I think for me, as I look at the younger generation, they really need that support from people that truly care about them. So does everybody else as we go through these places. Now that you're in a position where it's all new, you're going to be in a new home, a new everything, new clothing even. Is there something that you look within yourself and go, this would be beautiful to create for myself and to put out into the world from all the things you've learned? Because we have not captured everything and all the fires you've been through, but I'd like to capture what are the new beginnings.
The new beginnings for me, because one thing that's core for me is writing and expression. Writing, expression, speaking in front of people. I look back on my life and say, what were the things I was naturally called to? And even though I got later into technology and finance, I started out in literature and philosophy because that's what called to me. And it's taken me a long time to get out my first book, but there's more books coming because wisdom from the fire will be another. There is the feeling like the phoenix, the legend of the phoenix that arose from the fire. So there were some things that, yes, fire, that great heat releases. And so I know that's going to be part of it, as well as speaking. My dance led me to be on large stages. I did musical theater in 1,500 seat theaters with a full orchestra. I'm in a town now where very few people know that. But that gave me a different sense of reaching out to people, sometimes not with the head and thinking through all aspects of it. But I have memories of being on stage in front of 1,500 people and singing where what some people don't understand, it's not like, look at me. There is a vibration, there is a connection, there is a feeling that we're all one. And that's something I've experienced that I know I want to go back to. And it may not be with singing this or dancing this time, but creating that feeling elevates everyone. That's something I want to do more of.
And I can see that through a lot of the things you're touching. And we, as friends, had a chance to actually chat about a few things and some of the things that you're going to be working on. You've been in a speaker club for a lot of years. What would you say to people is the most important part about communicating from the things you've learned in Speaker Club? Because I believe that's one of the toughest things that occurs when our emotions are high, when things are may not be going the way that we believe they ought to. So, what are some of the things you learned about communicating that you can offer someone out there?
The first thing is because in the speaker club, some people come in and they're terrified. They're just, they say it's one of life's biggest fears is speaking in front of other people. We do it on a daily basis from the time that we learn to say mama, but somehow it seems different when there's people sitting in front of you. Uh, but the biggest thing is really just kind of to get over yourself and recognize that we're all connected. And then there are some learning, just as in all aspects of life, the organization and what are the words to use. Speaker club, in this case, Toastmasters, which is international, it gives you feedback so that because I think part of the fear is not knowing what did somebody else hear and what did they take away. So in an environment where people give you that feedback, it can feel a lot more secure. It's like because they will tell you some things that were really good about it. And then you get the opportunity to grow based upon what you choose. In other words, everybody's not at the same place. I've done this for many years because I challenge myself. I have my own objectives when I get up to speak. And then I get to see, did it land? I have learned that it's a safe place where if I'm testing something new, I can do it. Sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't, but it's a safe place to do it. I don't suggest starting out on a theater with 1,500 seats is the place to do it. But that was never, ever just getting up and ad-libbing. That kind of theater, a whole group of people have rehearsed and rehearsed, and you know where everyone is going to be at every moment. That's the kind of detail that goes into that kind of performance. But having some place where you feel that you can be heard and you can take it at your own speed. Let's say right now we have had someone who had a stroke and could not fill out his own application, who got in it and has learned to become really a very good speaker. We have another one starting who was autistic. He did not speak. He didn't say a full sentence till he was over 30. He lives with his mother and he's now joining this club because he just kept coming and seeing people were friendly and laughing and supportive. And after 6 months of just being a guest, he now gets up and he'll find jokes. He reads them off a page. But this is triumph for him. And we all recognize that it doesn't matter if he keeps reading off of a page. This is a huge challenge from where he's been at. It's huge growth. That's why I guess I'm always have been excited about this and the people who come in because it doesn't matter where you're at. We all have to communicate. The better you can do that and then feel like you're really heard on the other end, it's better for everyone.
I have a couple more questions for you, but before we go there, how do people connect with you, Carole? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
The best way, if you're in business, I have bizchangenavigator.com. It's a website. Or my personal website, Carole at thecarolehodges.com. So just go to my name. First name has an E on it, but carolehodges.com.
And I'm going to
That's where I'll
suggest
be keeping
LinkedIn.
that up.
And I'm going to
And
suggest LinkedIn also for
yes,
some of the people out there.
that's a good place to find me. Yes.
Carole, I on purpose went to the various pieces of your life because as people look at someone who is composed, even going through fires and lots of challenges, they believe that that's the mark. But you said something so important is that people don't show up at a theater and dance in front of 1,500 people and are great at it. They've had lots of training and lots of practice. And you said the same thing within the Speakers Club, that the individuals that are beginning to excel are dedicating their time and energy to learning the skills to become the next thing for them. How would you put all these experiences together to go, this is why I am the way I am today? I'm asking you to literally boast, speak about who you are, because we've learned through society to downplay who we are. And that's not okay anymore for anybody.
No, I kept following my heart and doing things. Now, if you want to know the full list of what I've actually done, and LinkedIn is a very good place. My husband challenged me to write down every class that I had taken. I did that. It's actually listed there. The reason that I did that, and it's just kind of a click here for more, but it's easy to forget all of the things that I've done. And as something comes up and it's like, oh yeah, well, okay, that was $15,000 I spent because I learned multiple levels of thought process and how we do that and how to do that from stage. I learned I learned thought process through NLP, through spiritual classes. You could see the whole list of them that had me learn ways to question myself in order to improve. And that's what I now hear when when I speak to someone, is what's actually going on with them and what might open up. Sometimes simple things, a word or an image. I will tell you, it's not random. It's not random. It came through a lot of study and passion that enabled me to do that. So that's where I coach from, and I believe it's more than me. You stand on the shoulders of others, and you go through the list of people that I studied with and worked with. You know, I stand on their shoulders. I take their wisdom in. I didn't originate any of this, but I assembled my own in what I've done. And that's what I encourage others to do as well, is just look for the next step, because that's all we can do, is start with today and your choices today. But yeah, checked out LinkedIn, because yeah, I've taken quite a few classes, and I'm in the middle of transition myself. So what I look like in 2 weeks may be a little bit different, because again, I'm going deep and saying, what is my next step? So that's what any of your listeners, I say, what is your next step? Just the next step.
My last question. Not everybody's reaction is the same
Mhm.
when things occur. How have you dealt with people's reactions? And how have you kept yourself safe from
Mm,
what's outside of you?
yeah. And that's a good question because yes, there's people around me who are dwelling on the negative. What I've had to just do is stay within my own truth and acknowledge and honor where they're at because I don't get to write the life story of anybody else but me. But I can encourage people to look at other aspects. Is it true that a lot of things all got burned or are gone? Is it true that they're out of our lives? Yes, that's true. Is it true that people have stepped up and been generous? Is it true that opportunities are opening up? Is it true that we're still healthy? All of that is true too. So widen the box to see everything that's there rather than saying, hey, stop looking at it that way, look at it my way. No, let's just widen the box and say, now that you got so many things in your box, which things do you want to look at? You have choice.
Carole, is there anything that you'd like to say that I may not have asked you so we don't get off this podcast and go, I wish Rima had asked that?
I must say, this has been remarkable. You are brilliant and thoughtful in putting this all together. And I feel very complete.
Carole, thank you so much again and again and again for showing up for this. And to our wonderful viewers and listeners, please remember our attitude always determines our altitude in life. And we'll see you in the next podcast. And thank you.